Hey, this is Kirk, the Bariatric Carnivore. Well, we talked a little bit about visceral fat and why you want to get rid of it and how to determine how much you've got on your body. And if you haven't seen it, I'll include a link to the first video on it, which is what visceral fat is, why you want to get rid of it, how to measure for it at home using your scale and a tape measure. It is possible to get better results using expensive imaging studies, but if you want to figure out right now, today, and if you've got a tape measure and access to the internet and a scale, you can figure out how much visceral fat you've got to a pretty good degree. Not a perfect score, but certainly a good score. And it'll give you a gross estimate. And if you've got visceral fat, you want to get rid of it because there's two types of fat. There's the subcutaneous fat, which is the stuff that you're probably most familiar with. This is the stuff that you hate. This is the stuff that is between your muscle and your skin. This is what stuff that's showing up in your arms and on your thighs and on your belly, and you really dislike it. The problem is, that's kind of benign compared to visceral fat. And this is the stuff you can't see. This is the stuff that's inside your abdominal cavity. This is the stuff that is surrounding your internal organs. This is the stuff that is causing fatty liver disease, surrounding your pancreas. And it is an endocrine disruptor. It's like an organ in and of itself. It is completely, totally linked to overall insulin resistance. This is what contributes to type 2 diabetes, heart disease, Alzheimer's, and several types of cancers. So you want to get rid of it. Now, how do you do it? And that's what this video is going to focus on. Now, how do you get rid of it? Number one is diet. I know we sound like broken records that, eating low carb is going to fix everything. Well, it fixes a whole bunch of stuff. And it's so anti-inflammatory. And frankly, visceral fat is just a marker of inflammation at one level, is one way of looking at it. And it's dangerous, and you want to get rid of it. So getting rid of starchy foods, grains, probably vegetable seed oils, so I can't find a lot of evidence to prove it, but they seem to be linked. Sugar for sure. Sugary soft drinks and juices. I mean, it's amazing how drinking orange juice and apple juice and stuff like that, stuff that we thought used to be healthy, can really create this horrible cascade of events that will increase the amount of visceral fat you've got. And you want to get rid of the fatty liver. You want to get rid of the visceral fat. And getting rid of these ultra-processed foods really does help significantly. And eating a meat-based diet as clean as possible really does make a difference. Now, it may be possible. I do not know this. I'm not, somebody who's just militantly anti-vegan or something like that, though I like to make fun of them quite a bit. It may be possible to get rid of visceral fat by eating a plant-based diet. I just don't know it. That's not an area that I've really studied all that intensely. So listen to those influencers if you want to get rid of visceral fat on a plant-based diet. But meat-based diets, I know, get rid of it. When I had my bariatric surgery, it was fascinating to me because one thing that my surgeon was adamant about was saying, look, 2 weeks before the surgery, get rid of the ultra processed foods, eat low carb, though he didn't use those terms. This is over 12 years ago. And he wanted me to just eat real food, very low carb, no starches, no bread, no pasta, none of that stuff for 2 weeks before, and no drinking. And that was enough time. And this was kind of the good news when you really look at it, is that within 2 weeks, you can shrink a fatty liver. You can get rid of a lot of visceral fat really quickly just by getting rid of those starches in the ultra-processed food out of your diet. So, and you can measure it at home and test it, utilizing the calculator, and you'll see it go down pretty darn quickly. You're not going to lose weight overnight, but you can get rid of a lot of visceral fat and reverse your fatty liver disease very, very quickly. It's the first stuff the body gets rid of once you get rid of the things that cause insulin resistance. So, number one, eat low carb, real food diet. Number two, I hate to tell you this, you gotta get rid of the alcohol. Yeah, at least during this period of time. When you're trying to get rid of visceral fat, they just go together. Remember, fatty liver disease used to be called alcoholic fatty liver disease because it was completely associated with the amount of alcohol people drank until sugary soft drinks took over and kids started drinking that all the time, and all of a sudden kids started having fatty liver and they weren't drinking alcohol. So it's possible to, all of a sudden they realize, okay, there's two types of fatty liver disease. There's the alcoholic fatty liver disease, and then there's the non-alcoholic, and then they just said, no, it's fatty liver. So, it is, unfortunately, alcohol is inherently a toxin. It just is. There's really no safe amount that you can drink. There's no healthy amount. We used to think that back in the 80s and 90s that a couple of glasses of wine were kind of a health food. Well, that's not true. And you don't see that much even in popular literature anymore. Even people that want to say that it's good for you, frankly, there's no evidence that shows that it helps in any way, shape, manner, or form. And that's why so many people are quitting drinking more and more. So there's no safe amount for it. And if you want to get rid of visceral fat, you need to eliminate or cut down significantly the amount of alcohol that you're drinking. It's only going to slow down progress. Number three, change the way you do exercise. I remember when the book Aerobics came out, that was kind of the thing. People believed that long, steady state aerobic activity was the best way to burn fat and visceral fat and stuff like that. And strangely enough, they're doing enough studies now that I think the evidence is pretty clear. If you're trying to lose visceral fat and you're jogging for an hour or two a day, that's not going to help. Matter of fact, that is a stressor, and that is actually going to create more of it. So you want to get rid of the steady state cardio. That does not mean walking. I mean, walking is activity that is just moving your body. That's not really exercise. I'm talking about the stuff where you go huffing and puffing. That's steady state cardio taxing your body is a stressor. And it doesn't seem to do a body good, especially if you've got visceral fat. What seems to work is the more intense short burst stuff. The sprinting for a little bit, jumping up and down on boxes, doing intense work for short burst of time. That's what seems to burn off the most visceral fat. So give that a shot. Just try these different things for a couple of weeks. See how they work for you and see if they're making a difference. I mean, please do not do, if you're a couch potato, do not say, okay, I'm going to mark off 50 yards. I'm going to just do 50-yard sprints, because you are going to hurt your joints, your knees and ankles. You have to really work up to that. But the more intense burst of activity that you do, if you're somebody who just, your only activity is walking a mile or so a day, find the place where there's a hill and then walk up it as fast as you can, in about 3 or 4 different bursts, take a rest break, boom, and do that and work your way up to getting more and more intensive in your exercise. But the more intense exercise that you can do in short bursts seems to make a difference as far as getting rid of visceral fat. Sun exposure, believe it or not, seems to actually make a big difference. Sun, activates vitamin D, which is a hormone. It also increases the amount of nitric oxide in the body, which helps, a whole host of different things. It helps you sleep better. It reduces stress. It is a natural anti-inflammatory that makes your arteries less rigid, etc. It is a wonderful thing to have, and it is released through sun exposure. Does not mean that you have to sit in the sun for an hour or two, and please do not slather yourself in sunscreen. That's not what I'm trying to say. I'm just saying go out and get some natural sun exposure for 30 minutes to an hour while we still got it before winter time comes, and that is going to help. Don't burn, but get that natural sun exposure, and that's going to help you increase the amount of natural nitric oxide in your bloodstream and increase the amount of vitamin D, which will help you get rid of all that visceral fat which you want to get rid of. And sleep is really darn important in this one. I mean, there's a couple of studies that are out there that show that if you deliberately reduce the amount of sleep by 30 minutes to an hour on people that are healthy, the amount of visceral fat they get goes up pretty dramatically, very, very quickly. And the other side of the coin is it reduces when they get adequate sleep. So getting that 6 to 8 hours of sleep every night really does make a difference as far as knocking down the amount of visceral fat that you have. So all these things all work together. They're going to make you the healthiest version of yourself. You're going to feel better, but it's also going to reduce the amount of visceral fat. And if there was a pill that would eliminate visceral fat, if there was a GLP-1 injection that they could charge you $1,000 a month for, trust me, they would be pushing that. The reason they're not talking about visceral fat in the news media, and the reason why your doctor isn't talking about it, is quite frankly, there's no pill for it. The only solution is lifestyle, and they're thankfully things that only serve to make you healthier and are just improve the overall quality of your life anyway. So why not incorporate them and try to get rid of the visceral fat? You've got the tools now. You've got, you know how to check for visceral fat based on, the first video that I've done, which will show you how to just use a tape measure and a scale and a visceral fat calculator. And it'll give you a pretty good indication about how much visceral fat you've got. Do not freak out if you've got it. It just means this is where we're starting. Incorporate, these changes to your lifestyle the best you can. Get rid of the ultra-processed food, get rid of the alcohol, try to increase the amount of sleep and sun. And your exercise in highly intense bursts. And add all that stuff together, you're just going to get healthier. You're going to decrease the amount of visceral fat. You're going to feel better, and you're going to live a better life. This is Kirk, the Bariatric Carnivore. If you like this message, please hit like and subscribe. Join this channel of other like-minded people who are really working to try to get themselves healthier. I try to put out a couple messages each week. I will talk to you again soon.